Kubernetes for Humans.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Kubernetes for Humans podcast. Today, with me in the show, we have Dustin. Dustin, can you please introduce yourself?
Hey, TL. Yeah, my name's Dustin Kirkland. I'm the VP of Engineering at Chainguard. We're helping secure the software supply chain. We got started really building secure containers that mostly run in Kubernetes. I mean, they can run it elsewhere too, but the overwhelming majority of our customers today are running our containers in production on Kubernetes. So I'm delighted to speak with you today.
That sounds good. But before we're going to talk about ChainGuard and how you guys are helping to make Kubernetes a bit more secured, tell us a bit about yourself. Where did you come from? What's your background? When did you first learn about Kubernetes?
Sure. I've been in technology for 26 years now. Came out of college as a computer engineer. Loved open source Linux in the late 90s when I was in college. Took the first job I could get that would pay me to work on Linux, and that was at IBM in the early 2000s. I spent 8 great years at IBM, including one of those years, 2005, staffed on site at Red Hat in
Yeah.
Boston, Massachusetts. I'm based in Austin, Texas. I was on site
Mhm.
in Boston working on IBM PowerPC systems. That draw to the Linux distro actually opened up an opportunity to join Canonical in 2008 as Canonical building Ubuntu server, the first server
Yeah.
distribution that Canonical produced. I did 2 stints at Canonical, 2008 to 2011. I was an engineer and a manager on the server. Then I was a CTO at a little startup called Gazang that was acquired by Cloudera. We built an encrypted file system and encrypted key manager in the 11, 12, 13 timeframe. So a little bit before HashiCorp and Vault and secrets
Good.
management and that sort of thing. That became Cloudera's security platform. I went back to Canonical and led product for another 6 years. So 2013 through 2018, I was at
No, like
Canonical.
I'll have to stop for a second because it's like a super interesting story. Like programmer, team manager makes sense. Founding your own startup, I'll be happy to hear about that a bit more, but also makes sense. But then going back to Canonical for 6 years as product. So share a bit more about like this time, just because it sounds interesting.
Yeah. I was the CTO. I was not the founder. I created the open source project that
Yeah.
some entrepreneurs saw. If you'd ever used the one-click encrypt your home directory in Ubuntu on the desktop you install, so that was a feature that I kind of created off to the side. It wasn't part of my day job, but I contributed that as part of just being a contributor to Ubuntu. A couple of really interesting sales guys from Oracle saw that and said, what if you could one-click encrypt your MySQL database? And so they founded this company called Kazang, and then we encrypted MySQL and Postgres, and then there was this explosion of Cassandra and Hadoop, and we could encrypt any of that. So it was a lot of fun. What I found was, as the CTO of this little startup, I was kind of doing a lot of product management, kind of figuring out
Yeah.
the bits and pieces of how do we sell this? How do we monetize that? And what we found was all of the bits were GPL open source software. We couldn't really sell the encryption, but there was no key manager at that point. Everyone was using hardware security modules. So we created a virtual hardware security module, basically. I was doing product before I really knew what product was. Um, I stayed in good contact with friends from Canonical and the founder of Canonical, Mark, and he recruited me back to lead product at Canonical.
No, sounds super like a super interesting journey. So 6 years as product, maybe share a bit more about that. Like, how was the company? Like, what was the company like product basically when you rejoined the company? And like 6 years later, what changed in Canonical?
Yeah, well, I mean, Kubernetes was born right in that time frame.
Uh-huh.
Rejoining in 2013, a company had grown up quite a bit. Ubuntu was beloved by many, many, many people, but trying to charge money for something that's always been free is really, really, really hard. And so what I had and by the way, there's little to no education to be a product manager. You just kind of happen to do the job and have to figure it out along the way. And, I did a lot of networking. I read some books, but, there's not a degree in product management. At least there wasn't when I was in school. Um, what I found was security. There was a lot of things you could, and this will actually bring us to Chainguard too. What I found was people will pay for security. They will pay for additional security. That's not something that, it's nice when it's free, but it's not something that's necessarily expected to be free. And so I created a couple of products at Canonical around security. The kernel updates without rebooting. We called it live patch. Sometimes customers would pay for uptime. They can't, they won't.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Updates after the end of life, extended security maintenance is what we called
Yeah.
it. Is another thing that, developers who want free don't really care about, but enterprises who need to stay on a thing for years and years and years will pay a little bit extra to have, extended end of life support. So, it was a couple of things like that that to me struck the right balance between there continues to be a free and open source version of things, but there's a thing that enterprises will pay a premium for.
Okay, so you've been there 6 years. Like the company, I think is going well, right? Like Canonical, like I see, like overall, like the company grew. And then what happened?
Yeah, so Kubernetes happened for one thing. I got an incredible opportunity to join Google, a company that I had interviewed with several times, but being based in Austin, Texas, not California, and not willing to relocate. Every other opportunity when Google reached out, a recruiter reached out, none of them went anywhere because I was unwilling to move and Google was unwilling to, accommodate a remote employee. The Google office got bigger. Work remote became a little bit more acceptable, and Kubernetes blew up. And I just had a kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity to join Google as a product manager working on GKE, Google Kubernetes Engine. My responsibility was sort of the OS under the worker node, the GKE node, and helping bring that on-prem into enterprises. So it was a good group of. I had a great engineering team. Worked with a great engineering team. My peer product managers. I learned a lot from them, and Google's just one of the great companies. And so I spent a couple of years at Google working literally on Kubernetes.
No, it's like a really good time to work at Google for Kubernetes. Like back then, the leading by far when it comes to, like Kubernetes adoption, Kubernetes in general. Even I think even back then, like AWS that were quite, negative around Kubernetes in the beginning did had a lot of people using kops, right, and Rancher and whatever to try and spin like Kubernetes on top of AWS. Like, was that the main competition, like for you guys back then? If you can, if you can talk about it, like what was Google?
Yeah, I mean, broad strokes, Google Cloud, it's no secret, was a distant number 3 behind AWS and Azure. This was 2018-19. Kubernetes was one piece of Google Cloud, but certainly a piece where unusually we had a first mover advantage. Google had first mover advantage. Not the case for S3 and EC2 and, all of these
Yeah,
sorts of things. But Kubernetes was a thing where it's like, look, if we can't win this race, maybe we shouldn't be racing.
competing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. But no, it was great. I mean, I've been to many KubeCons. Headed to KubeCon next week in London. Again, I understand you'll be there too. So
same. Yeah.
yeah, it'll be fun to meet up with old friends and new. Uh, but yeah, that was. I'll kind of bridge this to like the next part of my journey. I worked a lot with financial services, both at Canonical and at Google. The financial services industry, I saw rapidly adopting cloud technologies for an industry that had long been on-prem.
Yep.
And so I got another really interesting opportunity to join a clearing and custody brokerage firm, really a technology firm that didn't know it was a technology firm yet. In terms of being able to create APIs for brokerage, trading stocks and equities and other things as well. And this is, again, 2019, so a little bit before COVID, a little bit before that like explosion of retail trading. And I was the chief product officer there. There's one thing I was missing at Google. I went from leading a team and running an org and being an executive that reported to the CEO to being a individual contributor product manager in the middle of one of the world's biggest companies. I miss the leadership side of things more than I thought I would. I thought, hey, look, I'm going to clear my calendar and I'll just be able to work on my one thing and won't have all of these other responsibilities. But it gets in you, and I really miss that. So I joined this chief product officer at a company called Apex FinTech Solutions, and we provided clearing and custody services for most of the retail brokerage industry. One of our customers was actually Goldman Sachs. And I ended up eventually joining Goldman Sachs as head of product for the part of the retail business, the consumer platform business. Joined with every good intention.
Does it make sense? Like again, like your story is like quite interesting when I think about like the different companies. IBM makes sense, and like Canonical also makes sense. CTO, then back to Canonical, Google, and go like super versatile. One of the most like versatile guys. So what didn't work out for you back then?
Well, I mean, the whole world sort of changed, economy changed, and Goldman shrank the retail consumer business a little bit. I took some time off after that, and took basically a year off. Started a startup advisory practice, invested in a couple of startups, and really for the first time.
Anyone that I know or that our listener knows?
Sure. Stacklet is another company that is very much involved in the Kubernetes space. Always at KubeCon, Kapil and Travis and team, a bunch of old friends running that company. Governance, they're doing quite a bit in the FinOps community. A company called Mesh Connect, basically connecting crypto brokerage accounts, crypto accounts. BAM, phenomenal founder. Novi Labs is a machine learning oil and gas big data platform, helps oil and gas companies figure out the best place
Also super versatile, I will say. Like very like not like like the same. Okay, so you had your own business, you're investing a bit of money, and then what happens?
I've known the Chainguard founders, Dan, Kim, for a very long time. We crossed paths at Google. Dan and I were basically co-located, sat next to one another in Austin, and hung out professionally and socially. We weren't working on the same things exactly. He was constantly pinging me and picking my brain about Linux distros and security, and he knows the security stuff inside and out. The distro was like a problem that I think he and Kim and Matt and Vlate had suffered as a receiver of distros for a long time, and so in part they created the Google Distro List project in 2017, and then as that evolves, Distro List is a little bit tongue in cheek, right? It's a little bit of a joke. Of course, you're distributing software. What would it take to really do that and do that well? And so I had a series of long conversations with Dan, usually on the weekends, around what it would take to really create a secure distro. Dan's the CVO and co-founder of Chainguard. Kim's the chief product officer. Matt's the CTO. Vile is a distinguished engineer. And then it sort of all came together one Sunday afternoon as Dan said, look, we really need someone to help lead and grow our engineering team. So I went actually back to engineering, ETL. I never thought I would do that after 12 years in engineering, 12 years in product. Year 25, I'm back in engineering again and having a blast, having the time of my life.
No, so again, like super interesting, but maybe like share a bit about Chainguard. Like I think most of our listeners are not necessarily like aware of the company. So even before you joined, what was the vision? What did they try to do? Why were they, like you said, a bit stuck maybe, and try to bring you as well, or brought you as well, right? And like let's share a bit about Chainguard, like the history
I would say not so much stuck, but like ready to take off. It was a rocket ship on the right on the cusp of completely taking off. So I joined a year and a half ago, which was about 2 years into the Chainguard journey. Founders were all four former Googlers, had looked at the security space. They had in parts co-founded the Google Distro List project. parts of the Salsa project, securing the software lifecycle, and parts of SigStore and CodeSign, which was about signing and attestations of software. And they raised a round of funding very easily. There was one part I kind of skipped, which was in between leaving Goldman and joining Chainguard. I was actually thinking about starting my own startup too, and I'd met with Dan a couple of times, and he told me just how easy it was to raise his first round, and investors were throwing money at him. And I was like, man, that is not my experience right now. I'm struggling to raise money. And so it's at that point I should have just thrown in the towel and joined him, but I, went out.
What was the like there are four super talented people from Google. Okay, I would invest money even without hearing the idea. But what was the original pitch? Like, what did they promise to the world for the VCs, and did it change over the years? Like, there are this original.
I mean, so like clearly I wasn't part of the original pitches, but I've heard the stories and I've heard
Yeah,
it from
yeah.
investors as well. Uh, Chainguard's never made a pitch deck. They've walked into every VC conversation, and usually the VCs are asking the questions: "What are you doing? What are you solving? You're clearly four smart people. What are you working on?" And it evolves from like an organic conversation. So we've raised a couple of rounds of funding all the way through a Series C last year, and it ironically sometimes the venture capital firms themselves create the pitch deck for you, which is a little bit interesting in that they see the value prop. The original value prop ETL was really around SigStore and in a product that was called Enforce. Enforce basically signed software. It's a little bit simpler. It's kind of like if you were to take GPG, which is the way we sign software in the
Yep,
Debian Ubuntu
yep. I know.
world. If you
Mhm.
were to take that and make it a little more like Let's Encrypt and a little bit simpler to use, that was basically SigStore, and then Enforce was a product wrapped around that. Chainguard had a couple of customers of that, but then what? As soon as you get a customer, they start telling you what their other problems are, what their real problems are, and that's the real blessing of having a customer that's actually paying you some money and engaging with them and improving yourself. And so we got this opportunity, and customers started saying, you know what our real problem is? It's our security scanners. It's our CVEs. It's the number of unpatched vulnerabilities that are making our CISO, our board of directors, our investors, our public investors sad is, how vulnerable we are to software vulnerabilities and exposures that have fixes available. And so Chainguard took its first crack at that problem in 2023 and created a small number, a handful. It was 30 or 40, I think, by the end of 2023. We're over 1,200 images now of container images where we have literally eliminated all CVEs, all known security vulnerabilities that a scanner might find that has a fix upstream. We've remediated that. And I can get into some of how that works. But that product was an immediate hit. And we went from 2 or 3 customers to 20 or 30 customers almost overnight, found that product market fit. And that was basically right at the moment of when I joined, was to help scale that out. The engineering team was less than 2 dozen people at that point. We're well over 100 now. The company was 80 or 90 people. We're almost 400 now. We've since taken 2 rounds of investment and have, really have the opportunity to grow that business. Just yesterday in San Francisco, we actually launched our next 2 products as well. And so, yeah, now we're really looking to grow the business considerably.
Okay, again, like a super origin or like unique like startup story. Like the beginning makes sense, but the fact that you found that switch through those two customers and then blew off again, like kudos, and just shows like what a great team in a really good environment can achieve, right? Like Kubernetes is booming, images in general are booming, and security vulnerabilities are also booming. So it's like the perfect the perfect storm, I guess, in a way for you guys. So maybe uh, like let's I don't want to be too techy here, but be like a bit techy. So let's say that I really want to use, I don't know, Postgres or Redis or whatever. So instead of just downloading the Redis version, I download your versions. Like when I say download, like pulling whatever.
Yep.
So like that's the page. Like share with me like the page. Why should I use you? I use Kubernetes, right? Like internally Commodore or like hardcore Kubernetes users currently not using Chainguard. Why should we or should we?
Yeah. So we do publish a bunch of our images to Docker registry. We run our own registry as well at cgr.dev. All of the images that you might want to see are available at images.chainguard.dev as well. We can send those links after the fact. Postgres is a great example. So you need to run a database, Postgres database. You can Docker run Postgres straight from Docker Hub. If you scan that image with your scanner of choice, could be, Gripe or Trivy or Wiz or Sneak, Aquasec. On average, we typically see dozens to hundreds of security vulnerabilities that are unpatched in that version. In the Chainguard version of Postgres, we keep that at 0 CVEs, and we keep that at 0 CVEs per an industry leading SLA, service level agreement, that's designed to exceed the U.S. government's FedRAMP requirement. So we use FedRAMP just as a ballpark. FedRAMP says you've got to remediate critical CVs within 30 days, highs within 90, mediums within 180 days. So you have basically 6 months to remediate these. Our SLA says we'll remediate them within 7 and 14 days. 7 days for criticals, 14 days for highs, mediums, and lows. And our customers tend to like that because if they've got obligations under FedRAMP, we ensure that we can get that fixed soon, and then they can spend the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months or whatever they need retesting, requalifying, rebuilding that. So that's the key difference is like if you care about size, if you care about security, Chainguard's got a fantastic catalog of hardened images. Some of those are going to be more interesting in the enterprise. We have a number of images that use certified FIPS cryptography. So that's really where we fit. If you or your users really truly care about security, I'd say take a look at Chainguard.
No, that's a great pitch. Let me ask you something. I heard about like the Chainguard pitch, and my feeling was always that even if like the base image will be good, a lot of people will do a lot of steps to extend this image and then bring with them a lot of CVEs. Like, do you guys help with that as well, or only with the base image?
Yeah, that's actually a great lead in. We haven't even talked about it yet. Perfect lead
Yes.
into the second product that we've just launched. I said we announced it yesterday. So Chain Containers is our first product, and that's the hardened containers. Our second product is something called Chainguard Libraries. So you're right. There are a lot of new vulnerabilities that are introduced by let's say you're an end user. You start with our Java base image. You can get the latest and greatest Open JDK image from Chainguard, Open JDK 23 or whatever from Chainguard, and we've eliminated all the vulnerabilities from that JDK image. And let's say you're a Java developer or you're a company that uses a whole lot of Java, and you're a Chainguard customer, you use that image, and your starting point is 0. You start from a blank slate, okay? Now, you write some Java code. Now, that's your proprietary code. Proprietary code is not going to have CVEs, but your proprietary code depends on a whole bunch of jars that you need to
It
install
does.
from Maven.
Yeah, it does.
Maven add 162 jars. Guess what? Those 162 jars are going to come with probably a whole bunch of other CVEs that didn't come from Chainguard. Okay. Yeah. However, just yesterday, we announced a product called Chainguard Libraries, where we're actually taking all of the world's upstream open source Java archives, jar files. We've started with the top 20,000, which covers about 99% of the jars that people use based on the best analysis we could do on open source dependency files. So 20,000 jars now rebuilt from source by Chainguard using our tool chain. And so that, number one, ensures reproducibility. We can actually reproduce those jars. But number two, we can actually patch those against CVEs. So now a customer who's a Java shop can use the Chainguard base image and then add the Java libraries product on top of that. We're currently working on Java is now announced. We're currently working on Python next, and we'll probably tackle Node.js npm after that. So basically, you can continue using Maven and pip and npm, except you point Maven and Node and npm to the Chainguard artifact registry and repository, and you're getting those secured archives straight from Chainguard.
No, that sounds like an amazing product, but an engineering nightmare. So even I didn't want to go too much into the details. Let's take the old product just so it will be a bit simpler. Postgres now has a CVE, right? Like whatever something was just published. How are you guys able to solve and redistribute it so fast? Like I would imagine it's quite hard. So like it's quite hard even if you tell me only for Postgres, but how do you do it in scale?
Yeah, we'll take that. That's a great example. We'll take that pretty quickly. So first of all, as soon as that Postgres CVE is registered, it shows up in the National Vulnerability Database (NVD), which is run by NSF, the National Science Foundation. Our automation picks that up. We're a very automation-driven company. I wouldn't really call it AI necessarily, but it's a heck of a lot of automated, event-driven, cloud-based process. Okay,
Yeah.
so the moment that CVE shows up, it lights up on our dashboards, and we've got engineers, a sustaining and security engineering team that's watching those. The first thing is to determine, has upstream fixed this vulnerability yet? In the happy path, the vulnerability is published, and guess what? Postgres is one of the it's a well-maintained project. It's got an active community. People care about security there, meaning all the things it's not, right? It's not end of life. It's not dead. It's not a so it gets this vulnerability as an it gets this the upstream maintainers create a fix, and they commit that fix, and they tag a new release. I don't know, 9.1.25 or something like that. Okay. The good news for us is that if we see that, our automation automatically rebuilds Postgres from source within minutes of upstream tagging a new dot release. And that's happening, ETL, for 10,000 open source projects constantly. All the time, we are constantly monitoring and rebuilding. There's something rebuilding right now while we're talking. That automation applies our build rules, checks the checksums, bumps the version. If the build succeeds, then reruns all of our unit tests, which are the functional verification tests on that package itself. If that succeeds, then we determine all of the container images that actually include Postgres in it. We rebuild all of those container images, and then guess what we have to do with those container images? Retest those. In some cases, that might mean provisioning a whole new Kubernetes and linking up this one application with this Postgres database. That automation, again, runs when everything is green across the board, and there's dozens and dozens of opportunities for it not to be green. If it is all green, then it's published to our registry, and then all the customers who have bought a license to Chainguard's Postgres image will also get that image pushed out to them. And by the way, I said Postgres; it could be Postgres FIPS. We have a FIPS image for Postgres as well. Now, the unhappy path is if any one of those steps along the way fails. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. If upstream hasn't created a fix for it, I want to be clear. We're not creating the fix. So we're not, determining how to fix Postgres or 10,000 other open source projects. We are totally dependent on the upstream maintainers to do that. But like a farm to table farmer's market, the moment that upstream developer cuts that release, we are bringing that, into our build system and making that available to customers, typically within minutes to hours. They really how long does it take to run the test? We can compile almost anything in under 30 minutes, but some of the tests take hours to run to completion. So we don't create the patch and contribute it upstream, but as soon as it's available upstream, we rebuild it.
Okay.
And then if anything breaks along the way, again, a Chainguard engineer will have to get involved and figure out, hey, why did this build, we needed to bump this other version dependency. We needed to, Last thing, ETL, I'm going to tell you is the CVE usually, and by usually I mean 75-80% of the time, is not actually in Postgres or the end application. You know where the CVE is? It's in a library. It's in a dependency of that. It's if it's Go code, it's like Go crypto or Go XNet, or it's some library that affects not just one, but hundreds of packages. And so this is where that automation system that we built at Chainguard, that's our strength. That's our superpower, is that it's the machine, we call it the factory. It's the factory that's building this constantly.
Okay, so first of all, sounds super interesting, like super test at scale and automation and IT and security. Like sounds like very interesting and helpful for like the world, but also like interesting like running it as an infra. Because we're almost out of time, maybe like a minute on where are we going as an industry, like give your prediction, and feel free to promote whatever you want afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I'll do a little bit of both. I think that it's just the tip of the iceberg for this, like, eliminate all security vulnerabilities movement. The customers that we've recruited onto that mantra love it, and then they're typically asking us, where. So this is great for our Kubernetes. It's great for our containers. Where else do we have vulnerabilities that Chainguard could help us eliminate? And that kind of brings us to the third product. We're actually now offering and hardening virtual machines. So we build a hardened kernel where, again, we track the upstream CVE maintenance tree, the security tree that Greg Cohartman maintains. We rebuild that kernel and retest that kernel within minutes of an upstream release, rebuild our kernels. And guess what is running at the bottom of practically every Kubernetes? A whole bunch of worker nodes, a whole bunch of kubelet, worker nodes running
Indeed.
Docker. So that's our first target. So we built a hardened Kubernetes worker node for Amazon EKS. That's available as of immediately as of yesterday. And so here, if you're running Chainguard containers on top of a Chainguard VM, you really can get to 0 CVEs on that entire stack. I think that's where we're going. Stretching that to the library. So now you wrote some code, and you're bringing in Python and Java and Node, and maybe it's Rust or .NET or Ruby. That's sort of the next frontier and the next big things that we're working on.
Okay, super cool. Super cool. Anything else you want to say before we finish?
No, but thank you. What a pleasure. Very cool podcast. Certainly enjoy it. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for your sharing about the journey on Chainguard, and yeah, let's meet up for coffee at KubeCon.
Thank you, ETL.
Kubernetes for humans.